The
Hailey?
kids around here, they're kind of noisy. So
Okay, no problem. Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're from. We are on to our day three of our PharmaNext Health webinar here, and we're so honored and happy to have Hailey to come and be our speaker. Now, just a quick introduction. I'll leave her to do the more lengthy introduction because I kind of like standing for Pat here. Okay, so Hailey is our Director of Connected Devices, Global Research and Development from New Skin. So therefore, today we are all raving about our Prysm IO. So we can't wait to hear from Hailey. So without further ado, I'm gonna pass the stage over to Hailey. Welcome to our session today.
Thank you so much, Rosalind. Thanks, Pat and Marguerite, for the invite. I'm super happy to be here tonight and to be able to talk to you about our latest innovation, Prysm IO, and all the hard work that has gone into creating such an advanced product, and launch is just around the corner. So today we're going to focus primarily on the technology portion. Like Rosalind mentioned, I'm over the connected devices section in R&D. And so what my team works on is we work with our manufacturing partners, firmware engineers, digital team, to make the whole product come together from a technical side. Like Rosalind mentioned as well, I've been with New Skin for the last 5 years, and I've had a chance to go through and work with our customer experience team, marketing, and then in the last 2 years have been part of research and development. So it's been really fun to be able to work on our connected devices, LumaSpot IO, WellSpot IO, well, in the US, RenewSpot IO, and pull all those together and help connect them to an app. And Prysm IO, I think, is just going to be the greatest IO device we have had yet. And so I'm really excited to get into the details and talk with you about that tonight. But first, before we get into the technology, I do want to just highlight the overall trends that we're seeing in wellness. In 2028, the wellness industry is forecasted to be almost $9 trillion. And so today we're about $0.6 trillion market. But you can probably tell as you look on social media, as you talk to friends, everyone is so concerned about their health, wanting to know how they can live longer, right? Live healthier lives. What are steps they can take to sleep better, eat better, have less stress? And so it's top of mind for everyone. And everyone's looking for personalized solutions as well. And so some of the other key mega trends that we're seeing are that people want to know if their supplements are working, right? And that's one of the big concerns and customer needs that we're looking to solve when it comes to Prysm IO. People also want connected health solutions, right? Everything is going digital. Having that pairing of a physical product and a digital component as well, like an app, is becoming more and more popular because hardware is limited to a certain extent, right? Where you can have a digital component like an app that can have a lot more opportunities, features to bring together the product. And so having that pairing is top of mind as well. And then people also want personalized recommendations, right? We don't want to have just a one supplement fits all. Everyone should take the same thing. All of our bodies are different, our needs are different. And so making sure that we have personalized recommendations is also super key on customers' minds. One thing that we're looking to solve, right, with Prysm IO is we're measuring oxidative stress, right? We're measuring the effects of our environment against our body. And so oxidative stress, right, what this is a lot of invisible factors that contribute to our body deteriorating and stressing. And so even those of us that live super healthy lives, we are constantly bombarded with things like stress, pollution, bad sleeping habits, things like that that can start to wear down our defense systems, our immune systems. And so as part of that, which is why we are super concerned about our antioxidant level. Again, those lifestyle choices, smoking, pollution, radiation, high fat diets, again, unhealthy sleeping habits, all contribute to our bodies, right? And how they feel. But one thing that does protect our bodies against these oxidative stressors are antioxidants. And carotenoids are a sub-level of antioxidants. So if you think of antioxidant as an overarching kind of umbrella or category, carotenoids make up a portion. They're a type of antioxidant. And so our solution, right, is using antioxidants to help fight against those oxidative stressors that go and attack our body. And so you can see on the left side is an example image of that free radical damage or those oxidative stressors attacking and damaging cells within our bodies. Whereas on the right side, you can see that when we have antioxidants that help and protect that cell, they provide a barrier against those oxidative stressors and free radicals. And so it's really important that we have antioxidants in our bodies, and that we also continue to fuel our bodies with antioxidants. Our bodies make up some level of antioxidants, but some of them we don't necessarily produce enough. And so that's why we need to make sure that we have supplements and that we're eating healthy in order to supply those extra antioxidant levels in our body. And so one popular example is something like an apple, right? Once you cut into it, you can see that part of it starts to brown and deteriorate, right, over time. And that's as environments and stressors, oxygen start to deteriorate against the fruit. And so this is just an example of, what is happening inside of our body when we talk about those oxidative stressors that impact and attack our bodies. So why do we care about carotenoids? So carotenoids are part of the fruits and vegetables that we eat. And so a lot of those, like carrots, berries, fruits like that have a high concentration of carotenoids. And so we care about carotenoids because we can actually go and measure them. Carotenoids have a certain level, they absorb light at a certain level. And so that is something that we can actually go and measure within the skin. And that's why we can measure it with our biophotonic scanner and with our Prysm IO device. And so this is a really good biomarker of health. And that is why we measure carotenoids. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of background as to why we measure what we do, and why carotenoids are such a good indicator of antioxidants, and why antioxidants are so important for our bodies. Okay, so what if you could actually measure your body's defense system in 15 seconds? And so that's where Prysm IO comes in. And so with Prysm IO, you can measure the antioxidant levels in your skin. And so from red indicates a lower level of carotenoids, whereas purple is a higher level of carotenoids in the skin. And again, non-invasive, you can go and get your carotenoid levels measured through a doctor, right? If you go and draw blood, but no one wants to go and get their blood drawn, right? No one likes needles. And so this is a really innovative product, right? Alongside of our biophotonic scanner to help measure those levels in our skin without non-invasively and in the comfort of your own home as well, which I think is a huge plus, right? We're seeing a lot of these devices, more health wearables coming into the marketplace because people want to be able to check more regularly and check in the comfort of their home and not have to pay a lot of money out of pocket every time that they do it. Okay, so let's get into the kind of what makes Prysm IO unique. What's the technology that's powering this device? And so when it comes to kind of where Nu Skin has started in the past, right? We started in personal care back in 1980s, and then we've continued to get into different product categories, right? We went into nutritional products. We then launched our first biophotonic scanner in the early 2000s and started getting into beauty devices as well. And then we got and introduced our age lock science. We introduced our connected devices, and now we have Prysm IO. And so this is really important just to, when you think about the impact that Nu Skin has had and the wealth of knowledge and innovation that Nu Skin has as we've built off of our continual improvements and innovations over the years. And why Prysm IO is such a pivotal product at this time, because it is this culmination of what we know about supplements and how we've studied them and launched new supplement products over the years. And then as we've gotten into devices, and now as we combine the two, right, with Prysm IO into a more holistic solution, and just showcasing Nu Skin's wealth of knowledge over the years. It's also really fun, and I think this is a really great image to showcase that we started with our biophotonic scanner, right, back in the early 2000s, and that's the image on the far left. It was super big. I was not with Nu Skin at the time, but from the coworkers that were there with biophotonic scanner, and I'm sure some of you remember the first version. It was very big. I think the scans were maybe 3 minutes long, right? It was a very lengthy process and hard to share and get many people to scan. But then over the years, as we launched the S2 and the S3, we've continually shrunk that technology, right? Tried to make the devices smaller, tried to make it more accessible, and then coming to Prysm IO. One thing I do want to mention, which is I think really important, is as we were we were tasked as a team, the New Skin Development team, right, with Dr. Joe Chang and Steve Hatchett, to come up with a better way that we could scan the world, right? Again, biophotonic scanner was great, but we only made a couple thousand of those devices. They were really hard to make in terms of cost, and then hard to maintain as well. There was a very strict calibration process, and a lot of maintenance that needed to go into these devices. And so as part of that, it was hard to get the word out a lot, right? Not as easy as it could have been. And so the ask was, hey, how can we make biophotonic scanner smaller and easier or more accessible? And so that's where our team went. We went to the drawing board. We worked and partnered with some BYU professors, and then along with our internal science team. And as we were looking at the biophotonic scanner, we used something called Raman technology, Raman spectroscopy inside of the biophotonic scanner. And Raman spectroscopy, the optics block inside of that device is pretty big. It's probably about this big. And we looked to see if we could get this to be any smaller, but unfortunately the technology for Raman isn't there yet, right? We're kind of stuck at this size, and that's where you get the S3 size. And so we started to look at maybe different ways that we could measure carotenoids in the skin that would allow for us to have a smaller handheld device that you then see on the right. And so we're going to walk through how we ended up at that technology in just a second. But one other thing I do want to mention as well is we are the world's #1 beauty and wellness device systems. And this was awarded to us, I believe, about a year and a half ago. But again, such a great time for Nu Skin to be awarded this as we are now launching Prysm IO, and to have that accolade and that credibility from a third-party company, Euromonitor, just goes to show and strengthen that story with Prysm IO as we go and bring this to market. That we know beauty and we know wellness, and having Prysm IO be our first truly wellness device, I think is a great story to tie in with this claim. So when we talk about our unmatched science and credibility, there's a few key points I want you to remember as you're thinking about Prysm IO, as you're talking to those, and some great talking points that I think really help set Nu Skin aside. And so we've talked about kind of that progression of Nu Skin and the technology over the years, but we have over 20 years of research and development and knowledge in the antioxidant science. So, right, we launched our S1 back in the early 2000s. Here we are, 2025, and that's 20 plus years there of us studying and measuring antioxidants and studying the effects of different lifestyles and factors that impact our carotenoid scores. We mentioned that we're the #1 company for beauty and wellness. And then we also just recently, I believe beginning of June, Dr. Shelley Hester went and presented our first published study in the American Society of Nutrition, which went through and looked at and compared Raman spectroscopy, so the technology in the S3 device, and spectral ray technology, which we'll talk about in a second, that powers Prysm IO. And so we already have credibility and an article out there that goes and discusses this. And then we have a ton more partnerships that are in the works. I wish I could tell you more about them, but just stay tuned for maybe another month or so, and we should start to be able to release those. But we have a lot of different universities and research centers that are super anxious and excited to be able to partner with us on Prysm IO and to research it. Now, when it comes to the actual engineering side, here are some key points that I do want to call out that I think, again, set us aside from the competition, make Prysm IO truly unique and different from anything else in the marketplace. So we do have exclusive technology, which is spectral ray. We utilize AI as we measure the carotenoids in the skin, and we reference that Raman technology, right? So we mentioned that we've been scanning people on biophotonic scanner for the last 20 plus years. We've been collecting all that data as we've been scanning. It's not just gone out in the wind. We've been looking at how those different lifestyle factors impact your score. And we have over 20 million scans in this Raman database. I have some really cool graphs to show later on in the presentation, so stay tuned. What's really unique about our device too is it's super fast, right? We went from a 3-minute scan to a 1 minute to a 30-second to now a 15-second scan, which again may not seem much from 30 seconds to 15, but trust me, if you've all scanned a biophotonic scanner, right, 30 seconds can feel like a lifetime when you're just sitting there and waiting for your score. And then, like we mentioned, the technology we've gotten it to a size that we can now fit it in your pocket. It's more accessible, and we really wanted to make sure that it looked really cool on social media, right? Or when people see it, you're using it, they want to ask questions and say, hey, what is that? What are you scanning on? Tell me more about it. That was really an objective we wanted to accomplish as we were developing this device. Now, let's get into kind of the bulk of the technology on the device. So I've mentioned that the device is powered by spectral ray technology, and I want to break it down for you to help you understand what spectral ray really means. So there are 3 parts to spectral ray technology. One is hyperspectral absorption, and that is actually the hardware in the device. So if you were to go and look physically at the device, if you were to take it apart, you would see hyperspectral absorption technology inside of the device. Then on the software side, we utilize an AI algorithm, and like I mentioned, we reference that Raman technology, that data that we have been collecting for over the last 20 years to help calculate the score. Let's go and look at hyperspectral absorption first. So on this slide, so again, we're looking at the hardware on the device. What is actually physically going on inside the device, the physical components that are measuring? We have 2 photodiodes inside of the device, and photodiodes measure the intensity of light. And then we also have 5 LEDs. A few of these LEDs are used to measure carotenoids in the skin. Like I mentioned earlier, carotenoids absorb light at a certain wavelength. That's been studied, it's been proven. And we use those to then measure carotenoids in the skin by seeing how much has been absorbed. We then have a few other LEDs that are used to factor out other biological markers like hemoglobin and melanin that could maybe interfere with that score. And so we want to make sure that we're not taking those into account, that we are only looking at carotenoids. And then what we do is we fire those LEDs extremely fast. And you may have noticed, for those who have scanned on Prysm.io, you can see all those lights flashing underneath the lens, right? Those are all those optics LEDs firing. And what we do is we fire those LEDs, and on the way up, we measure the intensity of the light. So on the way up into the skin, and then we measure the intensity of the light on the way back down from the skin. And some of that light, as we shine it up into the skin, it gets reflected and absorbed. It just stays, right? It doesn't come back down. And that is what we are measuring with hyperspectral absorption. And that number is super, super tiny. We're talking decimals, right? We're taking that super, super small number from the hyperspectral absorption, and then we go and put it through our AI algorithm. So again, hardware in the device, this is what we are actually measuring in the skin and how we do it. Then if we go back to this graphic, so we've talked about the hardware on the left side, now moving into more of the software side. So this is what's actually the math, the logic, the brains of the device. We utilize an AI algorithm, which we looked at when developing this device. We looked at over 40 different AI models, and we wanted to make sure that we found one that correlated the biophotonic scanner scores the best with the hyperspectral absorption measurements. And so after we looked at those 40 different models, we then came up with the one that we are using today. And how we did that, how we came up with the AI model, is that we went and looked at how people scored on the biophotonic scanner, and then how their hyperspectral absorption measurements compared to the biophotonic scanner score. And so we looked at those, we referenced those, and that's what we used to train the AI model. And so now what's running inside of the device is we have a unique math equation that was used as we compared that Raman data that we have to the hyperspectral absorption measurements. And then the AI model is the one that takes that hyperspectral absorption and turns it into a score, which is what you then see, right, either on the LEDs of the device or if you've paired up to the app to get the numerical value. What's really unique and proprietary about this is LED technology is out there, right? You'll see it kind of in your watches, maybe in rings or other wearables. But what really makes this truly unique to Nu Skin is the use of that Raman data that we have, right? Comparing what we know with the biophotonic scanner to these LED measurements. No other company has that, right? We're the only ones that have the biophotonic scanner. We're the only ones with that 20 million plus database on Raman spectroscopy. And that's why the spectral ray technology is truly unique to Nu Skin. We do have a patent that is currently pending on this technology. But again, super exciting and very unique and truly proprietary to Nu Skin. So to sum up, just to make sure no one's confused or getting lost, a super easy way to talk about this when people ask what makes the Prysm.io device work, you can say We use LED technologies to measure absorption in the skin. We then bring in what we know about antioxidants from 20 plus years of study and data on antioxidants and measuring carotenoids in the skin. And then we have a very unique AI engine that powers the device and produces a score. And so those three different components are what make up spectral ray technology. The other thing that I think is important to mention is we were able to bring the device into a smaller format using this technology, but we also are leaning a lot more on software, right? And software we can change, we can update, we can improve, we can add new features. And so because this is a connected device, with the app, you'll be able to push firmware updates if needed, right? So in the future, if we maybe find a different way that we want to measure, we want to flash the LEDs in a different sequence, in a different pattern, that's all doable because that's a software change, right? That's a firmware update that we can easily push. And so while I can't give too much away or say too much right now at this point, we are really excited because this is just the beginning of Prysm IO. We think there's a bright future for this device and something that can continually be innovated on and improved over the years. Hopefully that all made sense about spectral ray. Again, just three different components. If you want to dive into the details, you can, but if not, you can keep it very high level and just talk high level about the three elements that make up that technology. Hopefully you've all had a chance to actually go and scan on the Prysm IO device, but if you haven't, this is just a very rudimentary animation that I made, but all you do is you turn on the device, there'll be a red light that blinks in the middle, and that means you can go ahead and scan with your finger. And then the scan will last for 15 seconds and the lights will go around. And then when the scan is finished, the LED, the color that your score is, will start to blink. And like I mentioned, the device itself will just show a color, but if you pair it up to the app, you can get a numerical score. So you get the color and the score. You do not have to use the app, but again, if you're out on the go and you just want to go and measure, there will be a color that can indicate. And once you start to scan and know what the colors represent, it'll be a lot easier and you can just remember kind of what the areas are in the sections on the device. But very easy to use. We wanted to make sure it was simple, not confusing, and just very straightforward because we want this to be a seamless experience and easy to share. One other element that I think is important to highlight, and I'll just kind of touch on this briefly, is when we were looking to initiate this project and kick this off, we went and did a study with, so spectral ray technology was fairly new. And our science team, we said, hey, let's go and just see how it compares to the biophotonic scanner, the Raman technology. And let's just make sure that they are measuring the same thing, you know, seeing the same results. And so in this study, we took about 50 people and we gave them LifePak and they took it for 12 weeks. And we measured them at weeks 4, 8, and 12. And you can see here in this graph that the S3 and the Prysm IO device both saw an increase in score over baseline at weeks 4, 8, and 12. Now, they weren't necessarily identical or a 1-to-1 ratio, right? They're very close, but they weren't necessarily one went up 3,000 and the other went up 3,000. And this is important to call out because we are using a different form of technology, right? We're using spectral ray. You can see here that it does measure carotenoids and it does measure improvements at a similar time period. But because it is calibrated differently, using different set of hardware, your biophotonic scanner scores and your Prysm IO scores may not be exactly the same. But they are very, very close and very closely correlated as well. And so this is, again, just our first preliminary study that we did. We have a lot more that are in progress right now that we'll be able to share those results soon. But I do think this is important to call out just as you'll start to get questions and say, well, I got, you know, I am 50,000 on the S3, but I'm only 470 on the Prysm IO. That this is normal because it is two different ways of measuring carotenoids in the skin, but that we see improvements over time when you take Prysm certified products and how that improves your score. But let's talk a little bit more about what makes up your score. And this may be familiar for some of you because it's a similar concept with the S3, but we are leaning in a little bit more onto the holistic approach of your score. And this is something that our executive team has really strongly emphasized, that while we do have powerful supplements that will increase your score, we also want to educate our customers on the other areas of lifestyle and habits that can impact the score as well. And so that involves fitness, supplements, we talked about that oxidative stress, and then your nutrition as well, what you put into your body. All 4 of these factors do contribute to your score. And so I want to then show you, I guess first, we'll talk a little bit, this may be familiar for you as well, but you can just see here on this graph that those that maybe don't eat as well, don't eat as many fruits and vegetables, have a lot of stress, high BMI, they may score more in the red and orange areas, whereas those that eat well, exercise fairly frequently, and have a normal BMI will be more in the blue and purple range. And so this is an asset that we're working on to make sure that you guys have access to as you start to talk with customers, and to explain more about the score and what it means and those factors that can contribute. But this, I think, is super cool to look at, and again, goes to show just how much Nu Skin knows about antioxidants and the impact on the body. But we mentioned that we have over 20 million scans that we have done on Biophotonic Scanner over the last 20 years. And when we go and plot those scans on a graph, this is what the bell curve looks like. And so you can see more than 50% of just the global population falls in the low to moderate range of scores. And so this is kind of what we would say is the typical bell curve for people. But we went and wanted to go a level deeper and said, well, okay, well, what's contributing to people receiving these scores? And if you remember, with the Biophotonic Scanner, you can fill out questionnaires, right, about your lifestyle and eating habits. And so we took that data and we started to segment it. So this screen right here showcases all the scans that we have with people who didn't take LifePak, they didn't eat very many fruits and vegetables, they had a high BMI, and they smoked. So you can see how that graph just shifted all the way to the left, right? Clearly, there's a correlation there with those lifestyle factors and the score. But then we said, okay, what about those that maybe don't smoke? And so we took smoking out, and you can see how that bell curve starts to shift. We're now going more into the orange yellows. And then we then said, okay, well, let's look at those who have normal BMI. It's not high. It continues to shift over. Okay, and then those that eat fruits and vegetables, again, higher scores. And then lastly, those that take LifePak. But we even looked at those that just took it 1 time a day. So this graph right here is just those that took LifePak just 1 time a day. The normal dose, right, is 2 times a day. And then if we look at those that take it 2 times a day, this is how the curve looks. And I think this is really interesting, and we will have assets for you to be able to showcase this data. But I think this is really important because it wasn't like they took LifePak and they were all the way up in the purple, right? It wasn't like they cut out smoking and they were all the way in the purple, right? It's all of these different lifestyles and different factors that contribute to the score. And that's why we are really passionate about helping to educate our customers and about all these different factors that can affect your score. So again, making sure that people are eating healthy, exercising right, taking supplements, right? We also saw that, you know, healthy lifestyle only gets you so far with your score. And we talked earlier, right? Your bodies make a little bit of antioxidants naturally, but not a lot. And that's why we need to supplement in with our diet, but then also supplements to help make sure that we have enough antioxidants in the body to fight off those oxidative stressors. But we will have a lot more education, a lot more tools to be able for you to utilize to be able to help educate on this topic and make sure that we are helping to change people's lives truly with this device. And again, here you can see, right, all those different elements that we looked at and how they can increase the score. You all know this, but again, I think it's super important to mention as we talk about really what sets Prysm apart from the competition is not only do we have this device that measures carotenoids in the skin, we don't just go and say, oh, you scanned in the red and orange, sorry, you know, hope you can improve it, right? We have solutions, we have options for people to be able to use to increase that score. And so there will be more training sessions and education on this, but all of the scanner certified products will still be Prysm certified as well. And so anything that was used before, like Beauty Focus Collagen Plus, LifePak Nano, G3, all of those are studied to be able to improve your Prysm IO score as well. And so again, one more great talking point to Nu Skin and our abilities there in our portfolio is we really do have this holistic solution to be able to help improve people's lives. We also will have an app. So I mentioned that briefly. And while at this time, I can't share a ton of information, I do want to just give you a very high level snapshot of what we're looking for in the digital component that will come with Prysm IO. This will be a new app. It'll be called New Skin Prysm IO. And in that app, we really are focusing on these three key important parts. We want to make sure it's really easy to scan and to get a score. So again, on the device, you can get a colored score, but in the app, if you pair up, you can get a numerical score. So we want that to be really fast. We talked about how we want to make sure people are interested in it. We designed the device so it could be fun. People are intrigued. They want to scan on it. But we want to make sure that it's very easy and intuitive to use and a great conversation starter as well, right? If you say, hey, it's only 15 seconds to scan, that's non-committal at all, right? I think anyone would have 15 seconds to figure out what their antioxidant status is. From there, again, hitting on learn again, this is a huge part. We will have tools in the app where you can go and learn more about your score. So what does it mean to be in the orange? What does it mean to be in the blue? And then to also look at those different factors that we've talked about and to get recommendations as well in terms of what you should be eating, different lifestyle tips, exercise tips, right? And then we will also have a product recommendation in there as well, based on your score and other factors that we know about you to be able to give you a custom recommendation on which supplements in our portfolio would be best for you. And then lastly, being able to track your progress and to share your results as well. This isn't necessarily a one-time journey, right? And you know this with Biophotonic Scanner, but it's not like you take supplements one time and you go, great, my score is high, that's awesome, I'm good now. It's consistent behavior change, consistent habits that you need to build up in order to have that consistent score. I think it's really important to mention too, with Biophotonic Scanner, we were only able to measure people every once in a while, right? I'm sure everyone measured at different frequencies, but I would say on average, maybe people were scanning 3 times a year, maybe. It depends on how close you had access to a scanner, but most people were not scanning daily, right? You had to have access to one, and we only had a couple thousand available out in the marketplace. But with Prysm IO, we're hoping to have a million scanners out there in the next year. And being able to scan so many more people, but not only scanning more people, but having people scan more frequently as well. And so you'll see, and we'll start to learn how our body changes and adapts, right? For those of you who maybe follow Ryan on Instagram, you'll see that he's been posting his score a lot, right? And mentioning how, he traveled to China, or he had a stressful week or was sick, and how his score adjusts and changes as well. And so that's something that I'm personally really excited about, and I know our team is as well, is as we start to collect this data, we'll start to look at more different behaviors and trends with your score over time, right? You won't be necessarily a high score forever, right? You may have fluctuations and changes as you go through different changes in your life, right? Different periods of time, and how that can impact. And so really exciting as we gather more data, and we'll be learning together as we get more scanners out there and get more people scanning on Prysm IO. But again, such a unique opportunity. And because we do have the hardware that we have powered by the great software that we have, the complex software that we have, we'll be able to continue to learn and refine as we get more scans in and have more people across the world scanning with Prysm IO. And so with that kind of comes to the end of our crash course on Prysm IO. I hope that was insightful, helpful. I don't know if Pat, if you're still on there, or Rosalind, maybe we have a couple of minutes for Q&A if people have any questions in the chat. I don't know if I've seen any come through, but we can just take a moment if anyone has anything.
Yes. We could open the floor. We still have some time, so we can open the floor for some questions, Q&A. Anybody, if you have any questions, either you type it in the chat, or
1 mile from right onto Crenshaw.
You can unmute and ask Hailey questions if you like. Perhaps we can unshare your slides, Hailey, so we could see your face. Okay, great. Your lovely face. Anybody has any questions? I'm looking at the chat, and it looks like maybe your explanation.
Maybe that means I did an okay job.
Perfect. There was no question. It's so clear.
No, that's great. One question that I didn't really touch on, but I know is a common question, so I'll just jump ahead of it, is we get a lot of questions asking about scanning on the finger. And can you scan any finger? Will your right finger and your left finger be the same? And so our answer to that is our preference is to always scan with your
Bluetooth.
Oh,
Oops. Wait, let me just mute first. Go ahead, go ahead.
Good. Okay. I just want to make sure no one was trying to ask a question. But we could encourage that index finger is just ideal just in terms of ease of scanning, right? The way that the device is designed is just easier to scan your index finger. But the most important thing is that you always scan the same finger, right? As with any comparison study, any measurement you do, you always want to be consistent where you measure, right? With your blood pressure, right? You want to make sure you're always taking it on the same arm. When you go to the doctor, right, they always put it in the same spot. And so same thing with the Prysm IO device. So pick a finger. Again, index finger is ideal, but if for some reason you can't, middle finger, ring finger, those are all great options, but just continue to scan that consistently so that you're able to track consistent results over time. And we know that carotenoids, they can deposit in differently throughout your fingers as well. So again, that's why it's just important to continue to scan the same finger every time to track those results.
Oh, there's one question that came in. Does the technology offer any supplements, suggestions for people with autoimmune diseases that make vitamin and antioxidant absorption difficult?
So again, as a company, as a beauty and wellness company, we have to walk a fine line to make sure that we're not getting into medical territory or a medical device. And so when we start to get into diagnosing, different types of diseases or maybe prescribing things for people with certain conditions, that's something we definitely want to stay away from. So no, we won't be getting into that level of product recommendation, but we will still provide product recommendations based off of what we know in terms of your score and some of those lifestyle factors.
Okay, great. Yeah, besides the skin carotenoid score, what kind of upgrades, extension can Prysm IO measure, and how soon can we expect to see this tech?
I can't say anything right now, but again, stay tuned. Like I said, again, is that the more we scan people, the more prisms we have out there, the more consistent people are measuring, the more data we will be getting, right? And data is how we learn, it's how we improve. And so we're super excited. Again, I think the future for Prysm IO is bright. I think there's a lot of opportunities. And so we'll just need to stay tuned, but hopefully we will have something soon in the future.
So when we get the Prysm IO, do we get the software on the app the app that you mentioned? Would it be available as well? It's just a matter of
Correct.
getting
Yep.
upgraded. Okay.
Yeah, totally. So like Lumis Bio and Wealth Bio, they pair up to Vera. I mentioned that Prysm IO will be a different app, but it's the same concept. So we'll have a QR code inside of the packaging that will just direct you right into the app. If you have an account already with Nu Skin, right, which all of you should have, you should just use the exact same account that you use to log in to Stella or Vera already, so you don't need to make anything new. That will log you in, and it'll be a really easy setup process.
And what happened if, let's say, we use the app to scan many people? Will we get a record of all the people that we invite to scan as well into our app?
Yeah, we'll have two different modes of scanning. And again, hopefully we'll have a training in the near future where we can walk you through exactly how the app will look and function. But we will have two different modes for scanning. One would be called the open mode, which means you can scan anyone and you'll track their scores, but you don't know whose score was what, right? And that we do this for privacy reasons. If you want to know whose score was and be able to track who it was, and if they fill out their email and put in their name and agree to the privacy terms, then you can go and see names associated with the scan scores. But yes, you will be able to save, you'll be able to look at history and see everyone that you've scanned. But it's just a matter of whether you'll know who that score was from or if it'll be an anonymous scan score.
Okay. Got it. Will the Prysm IO be available to all BRs to purchase in the future?
Yes, and I will kind of defer on this question because this is more of a sales topic and out of my zone of expertise. But I do know that we will be opening this up to all BRs. In terms of when, like the timing on that, I would talk to your sales manager on that. But yes, this will be available eventually for all BRs.
Okay, great. And how about a person's age with regards to their skin carotenoid score? How does that affect the score, the age?
Yeah. Age, so again, with the S3, we didn't have a ton of data on age, but we're hoping to get more of that with Prysm IO. I think we see variations. I think more, if we had to rank kind of what's the most important factors, we would say maybe diet and fitness kind of activity level are probably the highest contributors to your score. If age does have an influence, it's probably more of a, lesser factor into it, but we'll learn more as we collect more data on Prysm.io.
Okay, great. Good. I think you've answered some great questions. There's some good questions there. I think, wow, we had a great session. Thank you so much. What time is it over there?
It is 7:45. So I'm sorry. I know
wow.
it's late for you guys for those on the East Coast, and I think we have some people from around the world as well. So thank you all
Yes.
for joining, no matter your time zone.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, I like to take a group photo if we could, let me just, everybody, please. Sorry,
Oh,
nobody, no question.
yeah.
Okay, all right. I will take.
Thank you, Hailey. We're on. Hurry up, take a picture. When the cars start moving, then I
Okay,
can't have to
yes,
turn
yes.
myself off.
All right, everybody, please turn on.
I'm driving.
Great job,
Here, I
Hailey.
think you gotta
Thank you,
unspot me too, I
Haley.
think.
It's awesome.
Okay,
Oh, yes.
everybody,
Thank you,
yes. Have a big
Thank you,
smile.
Hailey.
Thank you, Hailey.
Thank you.
Hey.
Okay,
Thank you,
let me-
Haley. Thank you, Margaret and Pat.
So
Okay.
good to see you all.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Those people on the
Thank you.
second page, please smile.
you.
Hello, yes. Chicha.
Thank you.
Wow, awesome. Okay, my job is done. Thank
You
you
did a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you, Roslyn.
Well
Thank
done.
you.
Haley.
Bye-bye. See you, everybody.
Thank you, Haley.
So
Have a
much.
great night.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Hey, bye-bye.
Thank you, Roslyn.
Great. Yes, I'll send the photo
Perfect.
to the messenger. All
Hi,
right.
Wen. Hi, Eugene.
Hi, Haley. We missed you.
I didn't know you guys were on. So good to see you.
Yes.
You already
You
have heard this before. You have it memorized.
No, you really delivered that very eloquently.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
job.
you.
And I love your hair, everything. I love your nails,
Oh.
honey.
Thanks. They're getting a little long. I got to get them done again.
Beautiful.
All right.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
Sorry,
bye.
I'm going to drop.
Great
Thank you.
night,
So good
everyone.
to see you all.
Yes, see you.
Bye-bye.